May 20, 1913. Culebra Cut, Panama Canal Zone. The mountain gave way. For 8 years, men had attacked the Continental Divide with dynamite and steam shovels. They'd removed 100 million cubic yards of rock and clay. They'd buried 5,000 workers in the process. Now, on a Wednesday morning, the last wall of stone between two oceans crumbled, and water from Gatun Lake began flowing south. Samuel Clark stood on the rim of the cut, watching. He'd left Barbados in 1905 with 300 other men on the SS Ancon. He'd survived malaria in 1906. He'd seen friends buried under landslides. He'd drilled holes for dynamite until his hands bled. Now, at 32, he watched the thing they'd been digging for nearly a decade finally become what it was meant to be: a canal. The French tried first. In 1881, Ferdinand de Lesseps, the man who'd built the Suez Canal, arrived in Panama with plans for a sea-level canal across 50 miles of jungle. He brought thousands of workers from France, Haiti, Martinique, and Jamaica. Within 2 years, workers were dying at a rate of 200 per month from yellow fever and malaria. The French built hospitals. The hospitals killed more men than they saved. Doctors didn't know mosquitoes carried the disease. They built wards with standing water around the bed legs to keep ants away. Perfect breeding grounds. By 1889, 22,000 workers were dead, and the French company was bankrupt. When the Americans arrived in 1904, they found rusting French equipment half buried in jungle and graveyards stretching for miles. President Theodore Roosevelt saw the canal as essential to American naval power, a way to move warships between Atlantic and Pacific without sailing around South America. He appointed Colonel William Gorgas as Chief Sanitary Officer. Gorgas had eradicated yellow fever in Cuba by killing mosquitoes. In Panama, he did it again. By December 1906, there were no more cases of yellow fever. Malaria dropped 90%. The death rate fell from 200 per month to 40. Samuel Clark arrived during that transition. In St. Michael, Barbados, recruiters had promised good wages and free passage. The reality was different. When Samuel stepped off the Ancon in Cologne in March 1905, yellow fever was still killing men every week. He slept in a screened barracks with 40 others. He earned 10 cents an hour, silver roll wages, paid in local currency, worth half what gold roll workers received. White Americans on the gold roll made 4 times as much and lived in houses with running water. Samuel sent $5 home to his wife every month. It was more than he could have earned in 10 months cutting sugarcane. The greatest challenge was Culebra Cut, an artificial valley 8 3/4 miles long, carved through the lowest point of the Continental Divide. Engineers had to lower the summit from 333 feet above sea level to 40 feet. They had to move rock and clay that didn't want to move. Samuel was assigned to the cut in 1906. Every morning at 5:30, he rode the work train from his barracks to the excavation site. The cut ran between 2 peaks, Gold Hill on the east, Contractors Hill on the west. Steam shovels, 95 tons each, made by Bucyrus in Milwaukee, bit into the mountainside and filled railroad cars with spoil. 27 cars per train, 160 trains per day. 6,000 men working in shifts around the clock. Samuel's job was drilling shot holes. He worked with a partner on a compressed air drill, boring holes 6 feet deep into bedrock. Every hole was packed with dynamite, 300 tons per month. When the whistle blew, everyone cleared out. The explosions shook the ground for miles. Then the steam shovels moved in, and the process started again. The mountain fought back. On October 4, 1907, after days of heavy rain, 500,000 cubic yards of the hillside at Cucaracha slid into the cut. It moved 14 feet in 10 days. Workers had to dig it all out again. More slides followed. At Culebra in 1912, 75 acres of the West Bank broke away, pouring 10 million cubic yards into the excavation. It took 4 months to clear. Samuel lost his drilling partner, Marcus, to a dynamite accident in 1908. The fuse burned too fast. Marcus was 26. Samuel's time card said Silver Roll laborer. It determined everything. Silver Roll workers lived in wooden barracks without screens. Gold Roll workers had screened houses. Silver Roll workers bought food at commissaries that charged twice what Gold Roll commissaries charged for lower quality. Silver Roll workers used separate post offices, separate trains, separate hospital boards. When Samuel contracted malaria in July 1906, fever and chills that lasted 3 weeks, he was treated in the colored ward at Ancon Hospital, where beds were closer together and quinine was rationed. He survived. 800 others didn't that year. The system was imported from the American South. It was called Jim Crow in the United States. In the Canal Zone, it was called the Gold and Silver Roll. The effect was the same. By 1907, 75% of the workforce was West Indian, most from Barbados. They did the digging, the drilling, the dynamiting. The Gold Roll workers supervised. The death rate reflected it. Between 1904 and 1914, 4,500 Silver Roll workers died. 350 Gold Roll workers died. Samuel knew the numbers. Everyone did. They were posted monthly. Still, he stayed. So did most. The wages were better than anything in Barbados, even with the discrimination. Men saved money, sent it home, bought land, educated their children. Some struck it rich. Most just survived. Some didn't. In 1909, Samuel's bunkmate, William, fell 8 stories while working on the Gatun lock scaffolding. No safety harness. The scaffold came unhooked. William was from Jamaica. The Canal Commission sent his body home on a freight ship and paid his widow $25. By 1910, the cut was taking shape. The summit had been lowered to less than 100 feet above sea level. Engineers revised their excavation estimates every year, each time higher because of slides. What was supposed to be 53 million cubic yards became 84 million, then 94 million, then 100 million. Samuel kept drilling shot holes. His hands were scarred from drill vibrations. His hearing was half gone from explosions. He was 30 years old and looked 40. But the work was almost done. May 20, 1913, the steam shovels broke through. Samuel wasn't on shift that day, but he heard the dynamite salutes echo across the zone. Workers poured out of barracks to watch as Gatun Lake water flowed into the southern section of the cut for the first time. It would take another year to finish the locks and clear remaining slides, but the hard part, the mountain, was done. 8 years, 100 million cubic yards, more dynamite than had been used in any project in history. 5,609 dead, according to official records. Most historians believe the real number was higher. The French had only counted deaths that occurred in hospitals. Samuel had arrived with 297 other Barbadian men on the Ancon in March 1905. 43 of them were dead by 1913. Fever, slides, explosions, drownings, railroad accidents, snake bites, falls. Samuel couldn't explain why he'd survived and they hadn't. Luck, caution, providence, all three. August 15, 1914. The SS Ancon, the same ship that had brought Samuel to Panama 9 years earlier, became the first vessel to officially transit the completed canal. The grand ceremony Theodore Roosevelt had planned was canceled. World War I had started 2 weeks earlier in Europe. Samuel didn't attend. Silver Roll workers weren't invited. He heard about it later from men who'd seen it from a distance. The Ancon entered from the Atlantic, passed through Gatun Locks, crossed Gatun Lake, descended through Pedro Miguel and Miraflores Locks, and emerged in the Pacific. 10 hours. A journey that used to require sailing 8,000 miles around Cape Horn now took half a day. The cost? $375 million. The most expensive construction project in American history, and the lives, French and American combined, of nearly 28,000 workers. Each mile of the canal, someone calculated, had cost 500 lives. Samuel had earned $1,800 over 9 years. He'd sent $600 to Barbados. His wife had bought a small plot of land in St. Michael. Their son was in school. Many Barbadians returned home after the canal opened. Some went to Cuba to cut sugar. Some stayed in Panama. Samuel stayed until 1920, working maintenance on the locks. The silver and gold roll system remained in place. It would continue until the 1960s. In 1920, Samuel returned to Barbados. He was 39 and looked 60. His hands shook from years of drill work. His hearing never fully recovered. But he'd survived what many called the deadliest construction project in history. He'd helped dig a cut through a mountain that connected 2 oceans. The canal changed global shipping. It secured American naval dominance in both Atlantic and Pacific. It made Panama a strategic choke point that would shape geopolitics for the next century. And it was built, overwhelmingly, by black workers from the Caribbean, who were paid half wages, given inferior medical care, and died at 10 times the rate of white workers. Their names are mostly forgotten. The official histories credit American engineers and Colonel Gorgas. The West Indians who did the digging are footnotes. Today, the Panama Canal remains one of the 7 wonders of the modern world. Ships pass through every day. The Culebra Cut, renamed Gaillard Cut for decades after the American engineer who supervised its excavation, then changed back, still requires constant dredging. The mountain keeps sliding. Samuel Clark lived until 1956. He never spoke much about Panama. His grandson asked once. Samuel said only that it was hot, the work was hard, and too many good men died for too little reason. The mountain didn't need to be defeated. The mountain just was. Men decided it was in the way, and other men paid with their lives to move it. In St. Michael, Barbados, there's a memorial to the tens of thousands of Barbadians who went to Panama between 1904 and 1914. Most came home. Thousands didn't. Samuel's name isn't there. He survived, but the scars on his hands never healed, and explosions echoed in his dreams for decades. The jungle has grown back on the edges of the cut, but the channel remains, a permanent scar across the Continental Divide, wide enough for ships, deep enough to matter. The mountain is gone.